So one of the things we were talking about was just getting the supplier involved in that whole kind of requirements and sort of work order creation process. And you mentioned with stakeholders within the business, when it comes to self-service, the three issues being, if I remember them rightly, I know better, I haven't got time, or I've maybe got something to hide, and therefore I'm going to try and circumvent this process. One of the things that I want to come on to discuss is the value of having some level of vendor centricity to make this work on both sides. Do you think that some of the issues, and obviously if you make the process awkward for a supplier to do business with an organization, they're going to want to go around it. But do you think that maybe there are those similar kind of things to address on that side as well?
Yeah, I think certainly if you don't build it with the supplier in mind, it won't work, because the supplier, without exception, will have stronger relationships throughout your business, certainly at senior levels, than most procurement teams will have. And therefore, if you build a process that they don't like or don't want to engage with, they'll just work around you. So you've got to build something that works for both the user, the person in the business who's going to request some work getting done, and the vendor. And if you can do those, then you've got a program that will work. And in order to build a vendor-centric solution, you need to find, well, what's in it for them? What's the upside? It might be that if you follow this process, you can be certain that you'll be getting paid on time, which in some organizations means a lot. It might be that if you follow this process, you're going to get visibility to the opportunities that you didn't get to see before. You've been doing great work in Department A all these years, but you've never met anybody from Department B. If you follow this process, it'll allow Department B to see what you're up to, or it could be any number of things. But you've got to find something that's in it for them. Otherwise, the vendor will be tempted to work around the process, and then as soon as you've done that, you've lost any benefit of running a centralized program.
Yeah, and obviously it's going to vary depending on the size and type of organization, and you've got different problems within different parts of the supply chain that need to be addressed to make this work for them. For example, you might have smaller suppliers that are super innovative, and they fit in really well with the organization's policies around sustainability and diversity and whatever it might be. But it's hard for them to get noticed because the organization has concrete relationships with some very big suppliers that they tend to use across all areas, just because there's very low risk in the individual decision makers around doing that.
Yeah, and this goes back to something I said earlier, which is that most of the value is in figuring out what happened after the SOW was signed. If you can really track, and I tend to boil it down to 4 key questions. Did the vendor do what they were supposed to do? Was it done to the standard that was agreed? Was it done in the time frame that was agreed? And did it ultimately cost what they said it was going to cost? Well, if you can track all of those, you create a level playing field. These small vendors with innovative solutions and so on, they might have virtually no marketing and sales budget, but they might be amazing at delivering work within your business. Whereas for larger organizations, they could still be good, but they've got the marketing ability to silence the smaller players. If you can track those data points and start building a data set on those and allow that to start influencing decision making, you've leveled that playing field. You've given a voice to those smaller suppliers where it's earned, and you've also maintained the voice of the larger suppliers where it's earned. And you're able to say to the suppliers, hey, look, if you're doing great work for me, the whole business is going to know about it. That's going to win you more business. That's going to facilitate your growth. We're going to reduce your cost of sale. We're going to really sort of shout it out when you're doing good stuff. That should get a lot more buy-in from all scales of suppliers.
Yeah, and when you're looking at this information and you're looking at visibility and you're trying to create a valid decision-making process, you can't do it if you're only capturing part of the information. So to benefit the big suppliers, you need to capture all information. To benefit the small suppliers, you need to capture all information. And if everyone's operating on a kind of equal footing in terms of the fact that they are providing a service to the business and they are a trusted partner of the business, it makes sense to understand really effectively on both sides what's going well and what's not going well. And it will create opportunities, as you say, visibility within the wider business, but also just in terms of finding out where things are going wrong. Like the fact that, if you're using a system effectively, you can get real-time reporting. That's something that's very interesting to a lot of people because, find out that a project is going wrong before it's too late. in terms of how that flows up the reporting chain. Because as you were talking about earlier, in terms of creating value on the client business user side, and also within the supplier side, procurement can sit in the middle, and they just get the value of just having all this visibility and all of this data. So actually they might be kind of orchestrating things, but not getting in the way effectively. Might be the wrong phrase, but just, really allowing the process to flow, but then being able to draw out insights and notice problems when they're coming up and address that. Yeah. Because typically I would imagine that's something that's very much after the fact. Something's gone wrong with this project. Can you go and have a look into why the suppliers hasn't delivered? What's gone on? And then you're into looking at trying to find the original contract, looking at the original milestones, what's changed, what's been tracked. And if that's not centralized anywhere, that must be a hell of a task.
Yeah, and procurement tends to, and I'm sure there are exceptions, but procurement tends to operate as a bit of the sort of SOW conveyor belt. They get engaged at the beginning of the process, they put the SOW in place, it gets negotiated, approved, executed, and then they go and do the next one. They don't tend to get the opportunity to be involved in what happened after the SOW is signed, unless something goes dramatically wrong, like you say. So I think having that data helps on the micro level of, hey, this deal's not going very well. We've got some early warning signs. Can you, come and help? But I think it also helps on the macro level, where you can start to build up this data set that says, well, these are the vendors that within my organization deliver on time, on budget, to standard. How many attempts do they take before they get things right, and so on. And then instead of just sort of looking to resolve the deals that have gone wrong, you can get ahead of that and stop appointing the companies who don't deliver very well, stop appointing the companies who get involved in those deals where you then got to step in later, and start driving work towards organizations who've got a solid empirical track record of delivering good quality work on time, on budget, within your specific environment. And if you've got a good enough data set, that can be down to location, to a particular facility, it could be down to skill sets, it could be down to scale of projects, and so on and so forth. But once you build a big data set, you can cut that data in so many ways to facilitate these more insightful and empirical decisions.